Would a murderer feel bad about his victim's fate? Would he feel guilt towards their family for inflicting of them the worst fate, losing somebody and that forever? When somebody loses their lives, it isn't only that person who does so, but their families too. And that applies to the perpetrator of the crime as well. We humans cannot ever forget a lost life, as grief is the act of a lifetime. For only illness and our own death could make us forget about that person we lost. What's up guys, Posnikov here. I hope I set the mood right for this video. As you can see, the lights are off, the music is scary, and I hope you're being safe and doing okay. Today I'll be presenting to you a manga that I have already talked about briefly in my psychological manga recommendations. Do check it out if you're interested. This video is quite special because I managed to get in contact with the mangaka who made this manga, and he accepted to answer some questions about his work. Anyways, the manga I'm going to be presenting to you today is about guilt and atonement. Well, that is how it presents itself from its description. If I had to briefly say what this manga is about, I'd say that it is a psychological thriller that deals with loss, pain, and grief. I believe that we should start already, so let's get started. So the name of the manga, as you can see, is Saihate ni Madu, in English Lost at the Father's Ends. It follows the story of a young adult named Kazuma. We first see him appear in the manga in its first chapter where he gets out of jail. Not for a simple petty theft, no, for murder. As he is released after serving time in juvenile detention, his mother comes to pick him up. As they talk, we learn more about our main character. Years ago, Kazuma had a little sister named Yuri. She was the sun of his life, a cheerful girl who was in middle school. A girl that showed so many emotions, from cheerful smiles to teary eyes. But most importantly, she loved her older brother deeply. Now, those who have siblings, we know how nagging they can sometimes be. But deep down, when we're older, we want to protect them. And we want them to be happy and safe. Of course, there'll be fights, jealousy, or petty feelings. But at the end of the day, the bond between siblings is one that should last a lifetime, right? That day, Kazuma didn't pick Yuri up from cram school. But she was an independent girl, she would come home normally, right? The day Yuri came back home, she wasn't normal. She was in tears, completely traumatized. Why didn't her brother pick her up, she begged. Kazuma was dumbfounded. It was not like he always picked his sister up, right? She was old enough to go home alone now. What had happened that day? Perhaps that girl could not take the burden of having her body be abused by some older man. Perhaps that day Yuri was abused by her cram school teacher, a man by the surname of Matsumoto. Now our main character Kazuma would only learn that information by reading it into his sister's diary when it was too late. As when he entered his sister's room, his sister wasn't there anymore but had left this world. Kazuma would never forgive himself for not picking up his sister. No, he had to make the person who did it pay. He had to take revenge, and so one day, like in a fury, without even thinking of the consequences of his actions, he tracked the cram school teacher that had abused of Yuri, and like a wild animal unleashing itself onto his prey, he stabbed him countless times, ending his life. Now let's end this flashback and go back to present day. Kazuma is freed and is in his mom's car as they drive to the graveyard to pay respect to Yuri. As he walks towards his sister's grave, he sees a young girl, probably in middle school, the same age as his sister, praying towards a grave. As she sees him, she runs away. Now Kazuma is in the eyes of the law a free man, but to him he has to atone for his sins, and he plans on ending his life very soon to join his sister. Now he has flashbacks of the moment he ended the life of his sister's abuser. There was a little girl that looked eerily similar to the girl he saw at the graveyard, just older. And well, turns out that is right. This girl is the daughter of the man Kazuma killed. Her name is Shika Matsumoto, and she's currently living in the shelter where Kazuma's mother is working at. During weekend, Shika lives at their household. Is her presence here just a simple coincidence, or does it hint anything else? Now I decided to stop the recap here for the simple reasons that I think you should read the manga yourself. Now, let's get to why I think this manga could be a masterpiece or could very well turn out to be another fail of a psychological tale. To begin with, I think that the plot itself is one of the selling point of this manga. This is not your typical revenge manga, it's the story of a man that has been living with immeasurable guilt after his sister's passing. The man is traumatized and has trouble even being in social situations. He is understandably broken, and throughout my read of the first volume, I could not help but feel uneasy when seeing his everyday life. He is just so miserable that it hurts, but objectively, that is great character writing. We have a deeply flawed and miserable character that despite his depressive intents, tries his hardest to make those around him happy. Now I think that the relationship between Shika and Kazuma is one of the most interesting couplings I have seen in recent mangas. It's just so atypical that I can't help but be interested to see how it evolves. The character of Shika herself is quite enigmatic. It seems that the fact of her being here isn't a simple coincidence, but I'll leave it here, I won't spoil anymore. I also think that the art style itself is wonderful. It makes me quite nostalgic as it sends me to some older mangas that were released during the late part of the 90s. In terms of originality, the art itself might be a selling point for me. It really sets the depressing vibe that the plot is trying to convey. I feel cold when reading the manga because everything looks so tired and hopeless. First of all, the story takes place during winter, when the characters look all depressed. I can only sense some warmth from the interactions between Shika and Kazuma's mother, which are literally some of the only moments where I've smiled during my reading. Now when it comes to the actual plot, it hasn't yet unveiled itself as I'm writing this video. Indeed, there are many things that are still left in the dark when it comes to the actual plot of the manga, but to me it can only get even more interesting. As someone who reviews manga, I'll be honest, when reviewing a manga I'll look at 4 things: the art style, the plot, the originality of the manga, and its characters. Saihate Nimadu excels in all of these factors with its first volume. Now I'm still someone that reviews and analyzes fiction, so I must not only praise the manga but be objective in my criticism. Something I've noticed recently is that many mangas like to be shocking and psychological. Shock value has always been trending because it can easily give the illusion that a story has depth, when in reality it is an empty shell. Indeed, there is a difference between being shocking for the sake of shock value or to convey an actual message that transcends fiction. For now, I strongly believe that Saihate Nimadu is a manga with an actual message. Do not try to take it as a realistic manga depicting a real-life situation, because the odds of such a plot happening in real life are almost impossible. What you need to get from it is that it tells a story of atonement, a story of grief that portrays the darkest aspects of the human being. It also raises the question whether or not ending someone's life is an action that can be righteous, especially when it is an act of revenge. So now that we have explored the themes of this manga, I think we should get to the most interesting part of the video. As I said before, I managed to contact Momoyama Hato, the mangaka behind Saihate Nimadu, and she accepted to answer some questions I had about the manga. Of course, her socials will be in the description, and I'm really thankful for her to have taken the time to reply to me. Now I have asked 5 short questions that I thought to be important for us readers. Let's see each of her answers. My first question was, what were your inspirations when writing this manga? This was her answer. I was inspired by the local scenery. The manga is set in Toyama, where I am from, and I emphasized the gloominess and weather from the region, which I actually like. Now my second question was this. So far the plot has been quite mysterious. Was it your intention to keep it that way in your manga's first volume? That was her answer. Yes, it was intentional. The mystery is gradually unraveled in the second volume. Shika's past will also get revealed in the next volume. So that is quite interesting, to be honest, so we'll get more about her past and more about the plot. So the third question was for me the most important. I asked if she already had an ending plan in her head for the story, and that was her answer. Yes, there will be characters that will unexpectedly appear and disturb the story, but the ending will remain the same. I hope to make it beautiful. So that's really interesting because there are many mangakas that actually write their story on the go and don't plan the story, and to know that she has a story that is planned is great because she will not drag things in a way, so it's interesting. So now the fourth question was the following. The manga's description says that this manga is a tale of guilt and atonement. These are highly psychological themes. Do you think that it is important for a manga to delve into those themes? That was her answer. I personally think it is important to delve into the theme. This theme plays an integral part in the characters as they all share it in common in their backstories. So the last question was for you guys. Would you like to say anything to your foreign readers who enjoy your manga? I have a strange feeling that my manga is being enjoyed abroad. I personally think that it is a very precious and appreciated opportunity. I hope you will enjoy the beauty of human beings struggling to be happy in my manga. Thank you for your continued support. Alright, that was all I asked her. I feel like it is always nice to understand more about the creators as they are the one with the full understanding of the message they're trying to convey. Through this short interview, I managed to get to know the mangaka behind the work, and she's a kind and hardworking person that really does love her work. Now, the reason why I've made this video is because I believe that a good manga is not only a story being told, but like a good book, you can reflect on many complex themes that are always interesting to explore. Mangas have this appeal that is quite unique in fiction, to have plots that are really over the top while not being ridiculous. Some stories are better told in mangas than they could ever be in books. From what I've discussed with its mangaka, and didn't include for obvious reasons, Saihate Nimadu could be a manga that changes how we explore revenge and grief stories. As someone who's been reading not only mangas but many literature classics, I always enjoyed reading psychological work, so finding a manga with such an interesting premise instantly struck my attention. Anyways, this was all for this manga recommendation. As always, I put it in the description, the link for the manga. Please support the mangaka as well. I put the Twitter in the description. I try my hardest not to spoil the plot for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoy my content, feel free to like and subscribe. See you guys, have a nice week. Bye.